As we pass from without to within, we first encounter the powers of imagination and fantasy. Many people stop here, not realizing that they must immediately pass beyond this first stage. For if we work chiefly through our imagination and fantasy, we're not yet praying in the correct way. This, then, is the first incorrect method of prayer. The second stage on the way within is represented by the reason, intellect, and mind, and in general by the rational and thinking power of the soul. Nor must we linger here, but pass on, and gathering this rational power together, we must descend into the heart. If we linger, we shall become involved in a second incorrect method of prayer, whose characteristic feature is that the mind remains in the head, wishing by itself to direct and govern everything in the soul. Nothing comes of these efforts. The mind pursues everything, but cannot dominate anything, and only undergoes defeats. The feebleness from which our mind suffers is described very fully by St. Simon the New Theologian. The second way of prayer can appropriately be termed mind in the head, in contrast to the third way, which is mind in the heart. At this second stage, while this mental fermentation takes place in the head, the heart goes its own way. Nobody watches over it, and so it is invaded by cares and passions, and only with great difficulty comes to itself again. To this account of the second way of prayer, I would add a few words from the introduction of the writings of Gregory of Sinai, written by the Starts Basil, monk of the Great Habit, companion and friend of Pasi Velikoski. Having quoted Simon the New Theologian, Starts Basil adds, How can you hope to keep the mind intact merely by guarding your exterior sensations, when your thoughts by themselves stream in different directions and whirl towards material things? It is essential for the mind, in the hour of prayer, to withdraw as quickly as possible into the heart, and to stand there, deaf and mute to all thoughts. Whoever withdraws only outwardly from seeing, hearing, and speaking obtains little result. Enclose your mind in the inner cell of the heart, and then you will enjoy rest from evil thoughts, and you will experience the spiritual joy which is brought by inner prayer and attention of the heart. St. Hezekiah says, Our mind cannot defeat evil dreams by itself alone, and let it never hope to do so. Take heed, therefore, not to think highly of yourself like the old Israel, lest you also be delivered up to our invisible enemies. When the God of all creation delivered Israel from the Egyptians, the Israelites fashioned a molten image to be their helper. But the molten image, you should understand, our feeble mind. When it invokes Jesus Christ against the spirits of wickedness, it drives them away easily. But when its folly it trusts wholly to itself, it experiences sudden and grievous downfall. What happens to the soul when we greatly desire to pray, or when we are drawn to prayer, and how should we behave? Everyone experiences this desire in greater or lesser degree as they proceed on the path of the Christian life. Once they have begun to seek God by personal effort, until they finally reach their goal of a living communion with Him. They all experience it after having attained it to this goal. It is a state resembling that of a man plunged in deep thought, withdrawn within himself, concentrated in his soul, paying no attention to external surroundings, to people, things, and events. But when a man is plunged in thought, it is the mind which is at work, whereas here it is the heart. When the longing for God comes, the soul is collected within itself and stands before the face of God, and either pours out before Him its hopes and the sufferings of its heart, like Hannah, the mother of Samuel, or glorifies him like the most holy Virgin Mary, or stands before him in wonder as Apostle Paul often stood. Here all personal actions, thoughts, and intentions cease, and everything external departs from the attention. The soul itself does not wish to be occupied with anything extraneous. This may happen in church, or during the rule of prayer, or during reading or meditation, or even during some exterior occupations or in company. But in no case does it depend on your will. He who has once experienced this longing may remember it and desire its repetition. He may strive towards it, but he himself will never attract it by its own exertion. It comes of itself. Only one thing depends on our free will. When this state of longing comes, do not allow yourself to destroy it, but take the utmost care so as to give its full opportunity to remain within you as long as possible. Inner prayer means standing with the mind and the heart before God, either simply living in His presence or expressing supplication, thanksgiving, and glorification. We must acquire the habit of always being in communion with God, without any image, any process of reasoning, any perceptible movement of thought. Such is the true expression of prayer, the essence of inner prayer, or standing before God with the heart and the mind, consists precisely in this. Inner prayer consists of two states, one strenuous, when man himself strives for it, and the other self-impelled, when prayer exists and acts on its own. This last happens when we are drawn along involuntarily by the first, but the first must be a constant object of endeavor. Although in itself such endeavor will not be successful because our thoughts are always being dispersed, yet as proof of our desire and effort to attain unceasing prayer, it will attract the mercy of the Lord. And because of this work, God fills our heart from time to time with that compelling impulse through which spiritual prayer reveals itself in its true form. In the case of self-moving prayers, when the spirit of prayer comes on a man, we have no power to choose which form of prayer shall be given to us. There are different streams of one and the same grace, but these self-moving prayers are in fact of two kinds. In one kind, the man has a power of obedience or of disobedience to the Spirit. He can help it or can thwart it. In the other kind, he has no power to do anything, but is driven into prayer and kept in it by force outside himself, which leaves him no freedom to act differently. Thus, complete absence of choice occurs only in the last kind of prayer. As regards all other kinds of choice is possible.